This happened a couple of years ago during one of my annual camping trips. I was 32 and really needed the break from my job as a software engineer. I looked forward to the quiet and the chance to connect with nature. That summer, I found a remote spot by a lovely lake. It was surrounded by tall pines and felt peaceful. There was no cell service, which was exactly what I wanted. On the second night, while I was out gathering firewood, I stumbled across something strange. It was an odd old chimney, rising out of the ground like it didn't belong there. The bricks were cracked and covered in moss. It seemed like the remains of a long-forgotten cabin. I felt a chill run through me. Something about it felt wrong, so I hurried back to my campsite. The next few days were unsettling. I kept hearing whispers, but I couldn't figure out where they came from. They floated over the lake like haunting echoes. At night, the campfire flickered as if something was stirring it. I brushed it off, trying to tell myself it was just my imagination. But as the days went by, my unease kept growing. One night, I had a dream that left me gasping for breath. In it, I saw a young girl with dark hair. She was crying out for help, but I couldn't understand what she wanted. I woke up in a panic. My heart was racing as I lay alone in my tent, surrounded by darkness. When the sun finally rose, I felt a strange sensation I was being watched. That day, I spotted shadows moving in the trees. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, but there were flickers of movement that sent chills down my spine. I told myself it was all in my head, that stress was getting to me. But something deep inside urged me to stay alert. The air around me felt thick, heavy with unsaid words and unseen eyes. I thought about that chimney again. Did someone once live there? Perhaps the girl in my dream was connected to it. I felt drawn yet terrified. Each night, the forest seemed to come alive, wrapping around me like a blanket I didn't want. I could feel the weight of history pressing down on me, and each time I looked toward that chimney, my stomach sank. It got to the point where I didn't want to explore the woods anymore. I just wanted to sit by the fire and ignore the whispers. But one evening, as dusk fell, I stood up for more firewood. When I turned, I saw something by the chimney. It was just a shadow, but it didn't feel like just a trick of the light. My heart dropped. Then, clear as day, I heard that girl's voice again. "Help me." I froze. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a surge of panic. I couldn't move. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. The shadows deepened, and all I could do was stare into the darkness, waiting for whatever came next. I knew I had to find out what was happening. I couldn't just stand there, frozen in fear. With shaking hands, I grabbed my flashlight and took a cautious step toward the chimney. The beam of light flickered in the dark, illuminating the twisted bricks and the patches of damp moss that covered them. That voice, the girl's voice, echoed in my mind. "Help me." As I got closer, I felt an icy wind sweep through the trees, rustling the branches. I nearly turned back, but I couldn't leave without understanding. Was the girl's spirit trapped here? I took a deep breath and called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" My voice trembled. Silence. Then, without warning, a rustling sound came from behind me. I spun around, pointing my flashlight into the dark. Nothing. Just the forest, still and quiet, watching me. The whispers came back, swirling around my ears like a soft breeze. I kept hearing the same phrase mixed in with the sounds of nature, "Help me." I directed my flashlight back to the chimney. The shadows seemed to pulse around it, almost alive. I stepped closer, trying to shake off the feeling of dread that wrapped around me like a vine. As I reached the ruins, a chill coursed through me that went beyond the cold night air. Something was definitely wrong. The bricks felt warm to the touch, as if they were breathing. Then I noticed something peculiar. There was an indentation in the ground next to the chimney. I knelt down and brushed away the leaves and dirt. As I cleared away the debris, I uncovered a small, rusted key. My heart raced. I had no idea what it unlocked, but I felt an undeniable pull to it. Suddenly, I heard a giggle, soft and innocent. It pierced through the tension. I whipped my head around, scanning the woods, but I was alone. The girl. She was here, somehow, and she was playing. My head spun with questions. How was this possible? The whispers intensified, almost urging me to make a choice. I had to figure out what this key meant. Did it belong to her? Was it linked to the old chimney? I felt unsteady. The weight of the decision pressed down like the heavy air. As I stood there, I saw something shimmer at the edge of the trees. It looked like a small bag, partially buried in the underbrush. Against my better judgment, I crept toward it, my heart pounding. I could feel the forest closing in, like it didn't want me to get too close. When I reached the bag, I hesitated before opening it. Inside, I found old photographs, weathered and yellowed by time. The faces were blurry, but one photo caught my breath. It was of a girl with dark hair, the same girl from my dreams. I felt a surge of hope and dread all at once. I had to know more about her. But before I could process it, the whispers suddenly stopped. The air turned electric, and the forest fell silent. That's when I realized I wasn't alone anymore. My skin prickled. I turned slowly, shining my flashlight into the darkness, but there was nothing there. Just the shadows playing tricks on my mind. I took a step back, my heart thumping against my ribcage. The key in my pocket felt heavy, almost alive with secrets yet to be uncovered. Then I saw her. The girl from the photograph, standing just beyond the trees. Her dark hair framed her face, and she wore a tattered white dress that fluttered gently in the night breeze. There was an innocence about her, but the hollowness in her eyes frightened me. "Help me," she whispered again, sounding much closer this time. "What do you need?" I asked, my voice shaking. She pointed toward the old chimney. "It's in there," she said, her words barely audible, like they were being carried away by the wind. I could feel a thick tension in the air, like it was tasting my fear. As if the forest answered my uncertainty, a low growl rumbled from somewhere in the shadows. My heart dropped. I fought my instincts to run, but I couldn't resist the pull of the girl. "Wait!" I called, my voice echoing into the stillness. She stepped backward, disappearing into darkness. I wanted to follow her, but that growl came again, closer this time. I shone my flashlight around the trees, but the only thing I spotted was the rustle of leaves, as if something was stalking me. Panic surged through me. Had the girl drawn me here on purpose? "Just breathe," I told myself, still glancing toward the spot where she had stood. I needed to get closer to that chimney. The key felt like a lifeline, providing courage amidst my fear. With cautious steps, I approached the crumbling structure, scanning the ground for any other signs. The moment I reached it, the air thickened, and the temperature dropped significantly. I could see my breath hanging in the air like ghosts. I knelt down, examining the bricks. They weren't just warm, they vibrated subtly beneath my touch. I pressed my ear against the cool stone. I could hear something faint murmurs that sounded distinctly like laughter. I jerked back, startled, and the key slipped from my fingers, landing with a clang against the stones. It felt like the ground itself shifted as I squinted into the chimney's depths. Shadows danced, swirling in a lifelike manner. I took another breath, feeling as if I stood on the edge of something vast and dangerous. Then I saw it. A glimmer at the back of the chimney, just beyond the reach of my flashlight. My instincts screamed for me to flee, but I stepped closer, drawn like a moth to a flame. Just when I was about to lean in, I heard a loud thump behind me, followed by rustling. That growl was back, clearer now, sharper. I spun around, my pulse racing. Something was coming through the trees and it was bigger than anything I had encountered yet. My breath caught in my throat. I needed a way out, but part of me wanted to uncover the truth behind the girl and the key. I was trapped between two worlds, one of fear and the other of curiosity. But I couldn't delay any longer. That growl was close. My hands shook as I felt for the key in the dark. Just as I grasped it, I heard the girl's voice again. You have to choose. I was still holding the key when the growl resonated through the trees, sending a shiver down my spine. Panic surged through me. I took a quick step back, my eyes darting between the chimney and the dark brush behind me. The girl's words echoed in my mind, you have to choose. Choose what? I whispered, more to myself than to her. A flash of movement caught my eye. I turned just in time to see a dark shape slipping through the underbrush, a hint of fur, maybe. My heart raced. Whatever was lurking back there, it felt like it was hunting me. Flashing the light back to the chimney, I weighed my options. Should I make a run for it, or investigate further? My instincts screamed for me to flee, yet the magnetic pull of the girl was stronger. Somehow, I felt like I needed to understand what was happening. Please, tell me what to do. I shouted, hoping she would reappear, but there was only silence. With a trembling hand, I reached out to the crumbling stones, the key now cold and heavy in my palm. The laughter I'd heard moments earlier stirred in my mind, an unsettling echo. I wasn't sure if I was being called or warned. The growl came again, louder and closer. I felt it reverberate through the ground. This was my moment. I had to act. I thrust the key into the cavernous opening of the chimney, hoping for anything: a lock, a latch, a sign. The cold stone felt rough against my fingers, and I pulled it back quickly, momentarily disoriented. Then, without warning, the ground shook beneath me. A low rumble vibrated through the air, and I stumbled, catching myself against the side of the chimney. Just as the noise deepened, I heard a distinct crack. The structure seemed to pulse, and the glimmer at the back of the chimney pulsed brighter, almost beckoning. What are you? I murmured, feeling both fear and an unexplainable curiosity. Suddenly, the chimney erupted with a blinding light. I squinted, shielding my eyes. As the light flickered, I could see shadows swirling inside like ghosts caught in a place they didn't belong. I wanted to step back, to hide away from whatever was happening, but the girl's presence echoed in my mind. In that moment, I saw her face again. Help me, she pleaded, her voice breaking through the roar of the light. It felt like she was pulling me into a decision I had no time to make. Then everything went dark. The light extinguished, leaving me in a thick, suffocating gloom. My flashlight flickered and died, its beam gone as quickly as my confidence. I was left alone with only the sounds of the forest, the growl now replaced by an eerie silence. Is anyone there? I called out, my voice trembling. A rustle came from behind me, followed by footsteps that sent my heart into a mad rhythm. The forest felt alive again, but in a way that was more menacing than before. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was coming. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold, a voice, clawing its way through the blackness. You should have chosen. I stood frozen, the voice echoing through the darkness. It was low and guttural, reverberating with an unnatural energy. My heart raced, and my breath quickened. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Who are you? I shouted, my voice wavering. The only answer was silence, thick and suffocating. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the shadows. I squinted, trying to make out its shape. It was tall and gaunt, limbs elongated and twisted. I instinctively took a step back, bumping against the cool stone of the chimney. Do you see? The figure rasped. Its eyes glinted, reflecting the faintest hint of moonlight. You had a choice. What choice? My voice was barely above a whisper. I was terrified, but a part of me needed to know. The figure lingered closer, its breath a foul wind against my skin. To join her or to remain here? My stomach flipped as it pointed toward the depths of the forest. You deny what calls you. But the woods never forget. I turned, scanning the shadows for any sign of the girl. What did you do to her? I was filled with anger more than fear now. I had to protect her, or at least try to. She is my keeper. And now you must decide. The figure grinned, its thin lips stretching unnaturally wide. Will you seek her, or will you remain in ignorance? A sudden noise made me jump. I turned again, catching a flash of movement. Something was rustling in the underbrush. My heart sank. No, 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 I muttered, panic starting to grip me again. Whatever I had felt before was nothing compared to this rising swell of dread. My instincts urged me to run, but this time, I could feel the girl's presence tugging at me, a faint glow in the oppressive darkness. Help me. Her voice echoed again, mingling with the shadows. Stay away. I shouted, stepping forward. Where are you? The figure laughed, a sound that twisted in my stomach. You seek what is lost but ignore the living shadows at your back. Before I could comprehend what it meant, I felt a rush of wind. It whipped through the trees and suddenly the nothingness around me was alive with movement. Shapes danced at the edges of my vision. I staggered back, almost falling. Then I caught a glimpse of something in the light of the waning moon. A shimmering object, half buried in the earth. I moved towards it, curiosity outweighing my fear. As I approached, I recognized it for what it was. A bracelet. It sparkled delicately, yet seemed tainted, almost alive. That was when I heard it, a terrified scream, closer than before. It sent shockwaves through me. I looked back toward the figure, but it had vanished. The woods held their breath, and my heart thudded in response. Had I been too late? Gripping the bracelet tightly, I sprinted towards the direction of the scream, fear giving me strength. The darkness consumed me, but I had to know what lay ahead. That feeling of being hunted returned, and the whispers grew louder. As I dove deeper into the shadows, I heard the voice of the girl once more. You have to choose. But was it too late? I couldn't stop now. Not when I was so close. The ground beneath my feet felt uneven as I ran, each step threatened by roots snaking through the underbrush. Darkness closed in on me, but the scream echoed louder in my mind, pushing me forward. I had to find her. Branches scraped at my arms, but I pressed on. My breath came out in harsh bursts, every sound in the forest seemed amplified, the rustling of leaves, the calls of distant creatures. I felt exposed, a target in this unwelcoming place. Keep calling. I shouted, unsure if she could hear me. I'm coming. But only the rustling of the trees replied. The bracelet burned in my palm, its cold surface a stark reminder of my decision to grab it. Why hadn't I thought to just run? Probably because every instinct in me insisted I was meant to be here. The figure's words twisted in my head, like a riddle I couldn't solve. Just as I reached the edge of a small clearing, I felt a sharp tug at my ankle. I stumbled and fell, my hands digging into the dirt as I looked back. What the shadow darted past me, and I scrambled to my feet. It was no longer just the forest alive with movement. Dark shapes flitted between the trees, lurking just out of sight. They were watching me. I stood there, paralyzed, until I heard the girl's voice again, this time low and desperate. Help me. I scanned the clearing, searching for her, but found nothing but the haunting silhouettes. My heart raced as I realized I had been standing still for too long. I turned, intent on moving deeper into the woods. That's when I saw a flicker of light to my left, soft and inviting. I hesitated, caught between the call of the girl and the glow that felt almost like a beacon. Without thinking, I moved toward it. But with each step, the air thickened, like I was walking through honey. Everything felt distorted, heavy. The light grew brighter as I approached, illuminating a small pond. The surface shimmered, reflecting the moonlight like a mirror. And then I saw her, standing at the water's edge, ethereal and beautiful yet surrounded by shadows that twisted unnaturally around her. "Help me!" she pleaded again, her eyes wide with fear. "What happened?" I shouted, unable to keep the tremor from my voice. But before she could answer, a ripple surged through the water. The shadows thickened and surged toward me, swirling like a dark tide. My heart stopped. Were they coming for me? I stumbled back, the bracelet slipping through my fingers and landing at my feet with a soft thud. The girl's face twisted in horror, and she reached out. "Don't leave me. You have to make a choice." That's when I noticed it, a bright, glowing symbol on the bracelet. It pulsed in time with my racing heartbeat. I felt that pull again, stronger than before. "Choose quickly." The girl screamed, her voice laced with urgency, and the shadows closed in faster. And in that moment, it felt like the very ground trembled, as if the forest itself was alive and demanding an answer. But what choice could I make when everything felt like it was slipping away? I grabbed the bracelet, the warmth of it spreading through my palm like a bolt of electricity. The shadows loomed closer, a wave of darkness folding over the clearing. The girl's face twisted in desperation, her outstretched hand trembling like a candle flame about to extinguish. I had to decide. The glowing symbol was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once. What do I do? I yelled back, my voice cracking under pressure. "Choose." She insisted, her lips moving but no sound reached me. The shadows writhed at the pond's edge, hungry and restless. "You must choose." I looked around, my heart racing. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get away from whatever nightmare was unfolding. But something tied me here. I couldn't abandon her, not now. The bracelet pulsed brighter, a beacon through the thickening gloom. I lifted it, directing the light toward the girl. "What happens if I choose?" She opened her mouth to respond, but a low growl echoed through the clearing. The shadows crept closer, their forms twisting with an unsettling grace. Panic surged within me. "I can't let you go," I whispered, barely able to breathe. I stepped forward, clutching the bracelet tighter, feeling the symbol warm against my skin. As I took another step, the shadows recoiled slightly, as if they sensed the bracelet's power. The girl's expression shifted to one of hope, but then faltered. "You must pick the right path." I swiveled, scanning the edges of the pond. To the right, the forest seemed to thicken, dark and foreboding. To the left, there was a narrow path illuminated faintly by a scattering of small, glowing stones. Which way was right? "Choose." She cried again, her eyes darting between me and the encroaching darkness. I felt a pull towards the glowing stones. It felt right, it felt safe. "Okay, I choose left." I shouted, though I wasn't sure what I was actually choosing. I dashed towards the path, the light from the bracelet slicing through the gloom. The shadows hissed, a sound like rustling leaves stirred by the wind, and lashed out at my feet. As I reached the edge of the glowing stones, the air shifted. A barrier appeared, stopping the shadows in their tracks. I turned back, a rush of relief washing over me. The girl looked relieved too, but then confusion clouded her features. "What have you done?" she asked, her voice shaking. I looked around quickly, realizing the barrier was beginning to waver. The shadows were regrouping. My heart dropped. What did I just unleash? "Go further," she urged. "They'll come for you." But I couldn't move. I was caught in a web of uncertainty, torn between her safety and my own. Then everything changed again. The ground beneath us began to tremble, and the shimmering surface of the pond twisted as if it were alive. That's when I knew we were not just dealing with shadows anymore. Something much darker was awakening. I took a deep breath and bolted down the path, glancing back just in time to see the pond break apart, darkness pouring out like a flood. I could hear her voice behind me, frightened and distant. But I had to find a way out. I had to survive. I sprinted down the narrow path, my breath coming in gasps. The glowing stones underfoot acted like guiding stars, but the darkness behind me clawed at my heels. I could hear the shadows snarling, voices swirling around me like a taunting wind. Keep going. I shouted to myself, but doubt gnawed at my resolve. What if I made the wrong choice? What if this path led to nowhere, or worse, straight into the shadows? Ahead, a light flickered. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. What is that? I wondered, feeling a strange, magnetic pull towards it. I veered off the path and pushed through the brush, stumbling forward. The trees opened up into a small clearing. In the center stood an ancient chimney, its bricks weathered and covered in moss. Smoke spiraled up into the twilight sky, though I sensed no fire inside. My heart raced, it was so out of place. Why was there a chimney here, deep in the woods? I approached cautiously. The chimney loomed over me, casting a long shadow that seemed to stretch and stretch into the darkness. Maybe there's something inside, I thought. What if it held a weapon? Something to fend off the shadows? Taking a deep breath, I edged closer, peering into the darkening interior. The smell was musty, and I could barely make out the flicker of flame at the base. Reaching out, I brushed my hand against the cold bricks. They felt alive under my fingertips, pulsing in rhythm with the bracelet. That's when I saw it. An object glinted in the light, a small, ornate box next to the ashes. I crouched down, trembling as I reached for it. The moment my fingers wrapped around the cool metal, a sharp pain shot through my palm. A sharp cutting sensation, but not enough to draw blood. I snatched the box, cradling it in my other hand, and tried to shake off the discomfort. The shadows were still lurking at the edge of the clearing, waiting. But now I had something. I needed to understand what it was before deciding my next move. With quick breaths, I flipped the box open. It contained a peculiar dagger, its blade etched with intricate runes similar to those on the bracelet. I felt a rush of energy, a connection to something much larger than myself. But then I heard them, the whispers. They grew louder, swirling around me like a storm. It's a trap. They hissed, a chorus of voices filled with malice. I turned to look over my shoulder. The shadows had gathered like thick smoke, ready to devour the clearing. No! I yelled, clutching the dagger and the bracelet tightly. If this was a trap, I had a chance to fight back. I gripped the dagger tightly, my heart racing as I prepared to face the darkness head-on. The bracelet glowed fiercely, illuminating the area as the shadows encroached closer. Stay back! I shouted, feeling a surge of courage. But deep within, uncertainty churned. I didn't know how to wield this power. Would the dagger really protect me? With a roar that shook the very ground, the shadows lunged. My breath caught in my throat as I prepared to make my stand. The shadows crashed into me like a wave, dark tendrils reaching out, seeking to pull me into their depths. I raised the dagger instinctively, both terrified and determined. The runes on the blade glowed, casting a faint light against the encroaching darkness. As I swung the dagger, it felt heavier than it looked. A jolt of energy coursed through me, sparking adrenaline. The point of the dagger connected with a shadow, and to my shock, it hissed and withdrew as if stung. It was a reaction I hadn't expected, but it only fueled my resolve. Get away from me! I screamed, striking again. More shadows recoiled, the whispers turning frantic. You can't escape! They shrieked, darting in and out of the light like a swarm of angry bees. The clearing became a battleground, illuminated by the glow of the bracelet and the dagger. However, it was clear I couldn't hold them off forever. The swarm of darkness was vast, and for each one I pushed back, two more took its place. I needed a plan. Think. I urged myself, searching for a tactical edge, but my thoughts were jumbled in my panic. As I glanced to my right, I noticed a flicker of light near the base of the chimney. The glowing embers pulsed softly, inviting me. The idea struck me maybe the chimney held more secrets. I dashed toward it, dodging the grasping shadows. The dagger felt warm in my hand, a spark of connection reminding me I wasn't entirely helpless. I skimmed the edges of the chimney, hurrying to find a way inside. The old bricks were weak, crumbling in spots. If there is something in there, maybe it can help. I thought, though the whispers grew louder, threatening to drown out all rational thought. Fool! You'll be trapped. They hissed. Ignoring their taunts, I wedged my hand into a crevice and pried a loose brick free. As the brick fell, I uncovered a small hollow, just large enough to fit my hand. Inside, I felt something cool and metallic, different from the dagger. My fingers closed around it, and I pulled out an old, tarnished lantern. The lantern didn't just feel like an object, it thrummed in my hands. What are you? I mumbled, flipping the lantern over. I could see that it was crafted from silver, etched with the same runes as the dagger, an exact match. Light. My brain screamed. I need light. I clenched the dagger in one hand and the lantern in the other. With a deep breath, I lifted the lantern toward the darkest part of the clearing. Each step felt like a leap of faith. Would this work? In that moment, I flicked the switch on the lantern, but instead of a gentle light, a brilliant beam burst forth, washing over the shadows like sunlight. The whispers ceased, and the dark forms shrank back, hissing in fear. Keep going. I urged myself once more, holding the lantern high. The shadows twisted and churned, their solid forms breaking apart under the intensity of the light. Victory felt close, yet I could sense they weren't easily defeated. Then, just as quickly as it started, the glow of the lantern flickered. A chilling gust swept through the clearing, the shadows regrouping, more determined than before. Don't let them close in again. A desperate voice echoed in my mind. I turned to flee back to the path, adrenaline surging. But then, I realized my new weapon wasn't just a lantern. It was a beacon, the last line of defense. But where could I go next? The path behind me was swallowed in shadow. Suddenly, the world around me felt distorted. I blinked, and everything went dark. I stumbled forward, grasping the lantern tightly. The whispers returned with an eerie tune, swirling around me like a sinister song. Panic surged, fighting against my instinct to turn and run. I needed to gather my wits. Then, just as quickly as the darkness swallowed the clearing, a dusty specter of light flickered back to life in the lantern, illuminating a tiny radius around me. Taking a steadying breath, I angled the lantern toward the shadows. Perhaps this light wouldn't hold forever, but I couldn't lose hope. The haunting silhouette of the girl emerged, ethereal and desperate. You found it, she murmured, her voice tinged with both gratitude and fear. But they will come for you now. Then let them. I shouted, my conviction rising. I'll fight. The shadows dissolved momentarily into mist, recoiling from the light like ice melting under the sun. I felt a surge of confidence, believing this lantern could shield me. I held it high, willing it to shine brighter. That's it, the girl encouraged, her ghostly form shimmering just outside the perimeter of light. You must use it right. It can reveal the truth. The truth. A word heavy with promise, but what was my reality? The shadows were still lurking, waiting for the moment my guard slipped. Shaking off doubt, I turned and faced the tree lean, my heart pounding. The air crackled with tension, and I felt the eyes of countless shadows prying at my mind. Choose. They hissed, settling in a low growl harmonizing with the faint rustle of leaves. The lantern flickered again. Shadows surged from every direction, ready to consume me. I raised the lantern desperately. What truth do you hold? I bellowed, the fear in my voice mingling with defiance. In response, the lantern pulsed violently, sending beams of blinding light shooting out in all directions. As the beams washed over the shadows, they began to reveal their true forms. I saw not just amorphous darkness, but shapes, faces twisted with anger, sorrow, despair. Had they not been lost souls once? A chill ran through me. Did I stand among echoes of the lost? Help us, they moaned, their voices intertwining with the chilling wind. Help you? I uttered, astonished but unsure. For every face I glimpsed, I felt an ache in my chest. Even the girl had an expression of sorrowful longing. Is that what the girl wants? To help? But before I could ponder further, the shadows surged. They darted toward me with renewed fury, attempting to engulf me in their malevolence. The girl's face contorted with anguish. No. You have to break the cycle. Don't let them win, or we are all lost. I focused, tightening my grip on the lantern. Then, guide me. I shouted at her, almost pleading, though she remained silent now trapped in a moment of dread. As if reacting to my desperation, the lantern burned brighter, illuminating the very edges of the shadowy void surrounding me. The darkness quaked under its power. Tell me how. I demanded. Even in a fray of panic, I felt something shift in the air, a resonant hum vibrating deep within my core. I began to dance with my movements, the lantern followed intuitively, creating luminous trails as it carved paths through the dark. Illuminate. I shouted. Reveal. But shadows clawed and snarled as they encircled me again, and I felt the weight of their malice bearing down. This would be a fight not just for my safety but for the forgotten souls bound within the woods. With an echoing battle cry, I thrust the lantern outward, exposing the ghastly ghoul-like figures within their twisted darkness. The moment the first light touched them, they shrieked piercing sounds that rattled my bones. Help us! They cried as they retreated further into the forest. And so I pressed on, holding the lantern high, feeding it my determination. I want to let you drag me in. I yelled, and the girl joined in from her distant place, her voice both haunting and empowering. Use it. Set us free. With every ounce of will I could muster, I surged forward, calling out to both the lost and the shadows. You are not forgotten. I bellowed, letting my unyielding conviction spill from my lips, resilient light pouring from the lantern. The shadows howled, an echo of suffering reverberating through the world itself, urging me to stop. I refused. Through the chaos, the whispers faded, swallowed by the blinding radiance until even the girl's voice grew faint. In that pivotal moment, I felt the truth wash over me like a tide. I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was trying to confront the darkness that haunted this place, the unfulfilled cries of souls imprisoned between worlds. But then, as swiftly as it began, the lantern flickered again. In desperation, I raised it high. I'm here. Please hear me. I'll help you. Yet nothing came. Falling into the void felt like an awakening, and I caught glimpses of a terrible truth: the shadows were part of the suffering I was trying to combat. They were both curse and call to action, entangled in suffering. But I was still standing alive, breathing, trapped in this eerie twilight. The lantern sputtered again, fading, and I dropped to my knees, trembling as the shadows poured closer, roaring in deafening rage. Suddenly, with a flicker that echoed reality, a bright light enveloped me completely, engulfing every shadow. Visions and memories flashed, faces I never recognized but felt connected to in some unfathomable way. Keep the light, it holds the path. A familiar voice echoed back, but it felt hazy, obscured. Before the shadows could strike, I closed my eyes, gripping the lantern with every ounce of resolve in my being. The heat rose, illuminating everything in blinding white, but it felt different. It felt like truth and pain swallowed by hope. And just like that, everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, I was back standing by the lake. The chimney behind me stood silent, an unremarkable relic beneath the unwavering blue sky. But the memory of dark shadows and the girl lingered like a distant dream. I made it. I whispered, breathless and bewildered. Yet even as I breathed in relief, a question nagged within. Was it over? What truly haunted those woods? I felt changed, glimpsing something vast and terrifying that could neither be unraveled nor ignored. But I became aware of something still lurking in my hand, the lantern, now dark and cold, yet strangely comforting. As I turned away from the lake, I realized some questions might never be answered. But I can't dismiss the dread that drew me to this place. I shifted my gaze toward the woods behind me, feeling an uneasy sense that shadows still danced in the depths, extending their reach for unfinished business. One thing was certain, I would never return to this spot again. The darkness had a way of creeping back. And while I survived, I would never truly escape its lingering touch.